Hare Krishna. So, thank you everyone for coming. I'm sure as we get closer to Prasadam time, there'll be more devotees here. Actually, often when you get to the end of a class and you say, are there any questions? And sometimes there's no questions at all. So maybe the devotees that haven't come today, it's because they don't have any questions. If you don't have any questions, that means you're fully convinced. But yes, Srila Prabhupada, of course, there's a famous book, Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers, which is a conversation between Srila Prabhupada and he at the time was Bob Cohen. He was a Peace Corps worker. And he became, I was going to say Brahma Maharsa, it wasn't Brahma Maharsa. Brahma Tirtha Prabhu, of course, yes. But it's a very famous book, and it's very nice because it's very important to have questions in spiritual life. Like we said in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says in chapter 4, text 34, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevya upadekshanti te jnaninas tatvidashnaha. That one has to render service and inquire submissively. This is the process for receiving transcendental knowledge. So it's important to have questions in spiritual life. And it's not often we get a chance to have our questions answered by someone very experienced. And like we said the other day, sometimes we may feel embarrassed to answer or to ask our questions. Sometimes we may think, well, maybe that's a silly question, or maybe after 25 years in the movement, I shouldn't be asking a question like that. But firstly, there's no silly question. But we've made it easy today. We've been collecting baskets there with all the questions in, so Maharaj can answer your questions. So let's give Maharaj a warm welcome with a big Hare Krishna mantra on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Yes, devotees. Nama Om Vishnu Hare Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachayame Nirvishesha Shimya Bhadi Pastu Jyana Jatayame Vachikapa Trubhyas Chankripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Sri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So devotees, here's our first question. It is from Nadia, and it's an interesting question. It says, I've been chanting 16 rounds for the last few years, but still, sometimes I have difficulty focusing. And my mother tells me just to keep chanting, but I think there's more to it. I think I have to develop some deeper understanding. Yeah, a very good question. Good question. It's not easy to decipher. Oh, well, that's a good question, Nadia, an important question. Haribol. Yeah, Haribol. Gora. Yeah, the thing is this, well, sometimes, well, actually it's here also, there are different levels to this question here. Another level is that when you first start chanting, then it just seems to go so easily. And you just feel so happy. But then after some time, it seems to become more difficult. So what is the reason for that? Well, thank you again, Nadia. Good question. The thing is that you cannot make offenses in devotional service until you have started performing devotional service. If you're not doing devotional service, you can't commit offenses in devotional service. So because in the beginning you hadn't really committed offenses in devotional service, therefore it just seemed to go more easily. But then after a while, because we're not advanced and many things we don't understand very clearly, and we've got habits, some of them are not good, and we get distracted by them sometimes. Therefore, we commit offenses. Even if not offenses, but we just unconsciously may do things. I mean, one perspective you could say on offenses is that unless your attitude is to offend, if you just make a mistake, it's not quite the same as offending. But like for example, I remember the first time I drove on the wrong side of the road in France. Bit of a long story, but anyway, I went over to France in one of our British ISKCON cars, and it was going okay, but then I had to turn onto a highway, and I just didn't notice it. I went onto the highway on the wrong side. It was the off the highway, what you would call it, the exit off the highway, but I thought it was the entrance onto the highway. And people started hooting at me, and whoa, I got the message pretty quickly. But it's difficult. So it wasn't really an offense like, I want to drive on the wrong side and upset people. It was just a silly mistake. So, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he makes a distinction between actual offense, meaning deliberately doing something wrong. Yeah, just deliberately doing something. Nadia, I'm answering your question. I'm answering your question. Look, see? Here's your question. Okay. You have to be quiet. All right. Thank you. Yes, right. At least he puts it like that way. Otherwise, if you do something wrong, but it's just a mistake, and it's not some, intentional nonsense, then it's a different category. It's called a mistake in devotional service. And there are anathas which arise from offenses. There are anathas which arise from, there are different types of anathas. But one type of anatha is anathas that arise from mistakes. Yes. And you get effects from them. I mean, negative effects. But it's not really an offense, it's just a mistake. So Nadia, I'm still answering your question, okay? Your very nice question. I'm answering your question, you must listen. So, right, yes, if you just do something by mistake, then it may not be an offense. But still, if you drive on the wrong side of the road by mistake, there will be consequences. At least people will hoot at you. People will get upset with you, even though you may not get arrested. So there, Nadia, anyway, I think I've answered your question now, Nadia, your couple of questions. Oh, there you are, Nadia. Come around here, Nadia. Thank you.
Haribo.
What a good girl. And what a good question. Thank you. And that's, you've got to watch out. Just by mistake, your mind may become like that. You know, going around in circles. Okay, so what's the next question? We have a selection. Oh, look at that. Oh, gosh. What? Oh, it's from Prasad. Explain that once anyone of male or female takes birth on the globe, 7 to 8 ditto, prasad, in both Hindi and English. मैंने समझता हूँ आपका प्रश्न क्या है?
Coming back, there was a movie. Okay.
Oh, on an aeroplane.
Yeah, so they tried to interesting that, like him, there are 7 people, 7 walking, people get confused. In the end, that this movie was based on the Bhagavad Gita, and I couldn't catch it. So it is somewhere. So it's just like detours, 7, 8 to confuse the God, Lord Krishna sent detours to confuse among themselves. So it was a movie, in the end said that this movie has been based on the story and the chapter and verse.
Oh, chapter 7, verse 8.
Yeah.
Oh, chapter 7, verse 8.
Chapter?
Chapter 7, verse 8.
No. They are like him. There are 7, 8 walking the globe. Everyone he sends, okay, like him also Krishna. So sometimes you get, I've seen my fathers in metro who died earlier. So I got confused. So sometimes you get this question
why do people die suddenly?
So somewhere it's written in Bhagavad Gita that whenever Lord Krishna sends anyone on the globe, he sends 6, 7 resemblance.
His question is like, there are people who are like similar to each other, and there are like 7 sides. There are at least 7 people who are similar to each other in this world. So why is it like that?
That's right. You know, that sounds like something from the 19th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Or else if it's from the Bhagavatam, I think it's from the 13th canto. But, you know, don't mind me saying it. It's not Bhagavad Gita. But anyway, So seven or eight people are like you.
That's right.
Like you. You mean identical?
Yeah, like identical too. I have seen in my profession. This movie was based कि भगवत गीता में भगवान कृष्ण ने पर्सन को कंफ्यूज करने के लिए 6-7 एग्जैक्ट
ये कौन है? और ये कौन है? ये आप है।
It was actor Akshay Kumar.
आप कौन है?
It was interesting movie. In the end, they said this movie was based on the Bhagavad Gita chapter, and I couldn't catch, so to put in aeroplane.
Yeah. Anyway, I haven't read the 19th chapter yet, so it's difficult to say. But yeah, you get sometimes people who are, what do they call them? They're like doppelgangers. Doppelganger means they look enough like you, they can be mistaken for you. It happens sometimes. And well, you know what that means? Like, well, how about this? We in Mayapur, there were twins, Janani Vas and Pankajangri. They were identical twins. And I knew both of them for years, but I could not tell one from the other because they looked so similar. So you know what I did? I noted what watch, because each of them had a watch. I noted which watch each one had. And so, you know, I said, okay, Haribol Janani Vas Prabhu, or Haribol Pankajangri Prabhu. But it was just the watch. If they had swapped watches, it wouldn't have worked. But seriously, what it means is that there are two living entities whose karma, in many respects, is practically exactly the same. So therefore they're born from the same mother at, almost the same time, within minutes of each other. And, and they just look the same. So, but it's a point of karma. Because of their karma, then there's extreme similarity. I mean, because of the way they acted previously, they have, in many respects, more or less exactly the same karma. So they get more or less exactly the same bodies at the same time, from the same parents. And it's just a point of karma, that's what it is. But I know, we have a family in Durban of quadruplets, 4 of them, 4 children. And there's 3 boys and 1 girl. And the boys, they really look very similar. Yeah. And again, it's the same situation, but now there's 4. And they're just born in sort of natural ways. And then the parents have initiated devotees, and the children, I don't know if they're initiated. I mean, they're in their 20s now. But they look very similar. Even the girl basically looks like a female version of any of the boys. But it's a point of karma, because in the past they lived in certain ways, therefore they got bodies which were extremely similar. Yeah. And there's another related point actually. The point is that when a number of people, say, I don't know, 100, maybe 200, they have such karuna that they are all to die at the same moment particularly in very violent ways, then by Yamaraj's arrangement, each one for their own particular reasons gets on the same aeroplane. Someone wants to go and visit family, someone goes on business, someone's going on holiday. They may have their own reasons, but their karma is such, they are all to die at the same moment, very violently. So they all get on the same plane for their own individual reasons, and the plane crashes, and they all die basically at the same instant in that very violent way. Yeah, just see, I mean, you could say it's Krishna on the immediate level of, the details of what's happening. It's Yamaraj. Because Yamaraj has, in regards to managing the futures of living entities, Yamaraj has the power, the intelligence of the Supersoul, of Paramatma, of the Supreme Lord. Just like Vyasadeva is considered the literary incarnation of the Lord, means he has the same ability as far as using words, the same ability as the Supreme Lord, not less. Yeah. Then he's called, that's a Shakti-Avesh avatar. Shakti Avesh. Vesh means to be literally to be clothed or to be covered, like clothes cover the body. So Shakti Avesh, the person is covered by a particular Shakti of the Lord, and they sort of function in terms of the Shakti of the Lord. Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Prasadji. Bahut dhanyavad. Yeah, I mean, you didn't have to write your name, but anyway, I think this looks like Nikunja's handwriting. Thank you. Good boy. What were your main feelings when you first saw Prabhupada? Well, that's nice. I mentioned on, was it Monday? It was Monday. I saw Prabhupada at the university in Auckland. It seems it was on the 17th of April, 1972. Where were you on the 17th of April, 1972? Yeah, you're right. Previous lifetime. You're probably a kind of older person at that time. So my main feelings, well, I did mention actually on Monday that there were these two girls dancing on either side of Prabhupada, very gracefully and nicely. And as they're dancing, they're throwing rose petals right in front of Prabhupada's feet. And Prabhupada, his head was like this. And he was just cruising along, like he's just from another world and a much nicer world. And I thought, this must be like heaven. And it's true. When we go to Goloka Vrindavan, we'll be together in the Kunj. We'll be together. So when we go to Goloka Vrindavan, then we'll see scenes like that. They're just beautiful scenes. And it'll just be wonderful. And we'll be so happy. Oh, how beautiful, how wonderful. So those were my first feelings. That this is something from another level of existence. And a much nicer level of existence than what I had seen before. Is that okay? And this is from someone. Does everything in Goloka have a soul? Many devotees debate that not everything has a soul, such as an item like a chair, table, and other items. They say it's just matter. You know, in Goloka, there is no matter. There is only matter, you know, like this, in the material world. Yeah. In the spiritual world, well, it's called the spiritual world because everything is spiritual. If some things were spiritual, but some things were material, then we'd say it's a mixed world. Yeah, spiritual and material. And this world is, we say it's the material world, but actually it's a mixed world. Yes, of course it is. Because we're all spirit souls. Although we're all in material bodies. So it's not just like we are not material. And every living entity is a spiritual being in a material body. So the thing is, in the spiritual world, everything is spiritual. Yes. And including, even the plants, including the rocks. The rocks are wish fulfilling, Chintamani. And all you have to do, you can speak to it and say, could I have something? And suddenly, there it is. There it is. It's wish fulfilling. So if it's wish fulfilling, how could it just be matter? It couldn't just be matter. It's a living entity which has magical capabilities to just produce things apparently out of nowhere. All sorts of, you could say wonderful things, but any things. So therefore those rocks, they are spiritual, they're living beings. But the thing is, their service is, and they know it, their service is basically just to sort of stay in one place. So generally, all those rocks, they don't go moving around, walking around, although they have those capabilities. Not just the rocks, but the planet itself, spiritual planet. Yeah, it's a living being. And that's why even in this material world, all the planets have presiding deities who it is possible to say that the planet is their body. Therefore it's said about the planet Earth when Krishna was here. It's Bhumi is the presiding deity, female. And it's said that when Krishna would take, that's Krishna, that's one thing, but before Krishna appeared, there were all these kings who were competing with each other, getting big armies together and all that. And they would march their enemies along and make noise and sort of stamp on the planet, and it would hurt the planet. It would hurt Mother Earth that these kings or their soldiers were walking and, marching. I mean, you see some of these soldiers sometimes when they have these parades, they march in very exaggerated ways, their legs right out and all that. And they kick. When they put their foot down, they kick. And it hurts the planet. And this is one reason why Krishna came. Because the planet prayed to Krishna that I am being hurt. And then Krishna, he got herding the cows. And I don't know if you have ever had a cow, like a fully grown cow, step on your foot. If it happens, generally that is the end of your foot. Because cows weigh a ton just have a person step on your foot's bad enough. But a person may weigh, 60, 70, 80 kilos, or 100 maybe, 120 if they're really big. But, a cow weighs like 1,000 kilos or more. And if 1,000 kilos steps right on your foot, it will go through your foot. And that's the end of your foot for this lifetime. Wait till your next lifetime to get another foot. So Krishna would herd the cows and he would walk behind. And when the cows were walking ahead, it would hurt the planet. But then Krishna would walk behind and the planet would feel soothed by Krishna walking. It would feel, how nice, I feel okay now. But before that, the planet was feeling like each time the cows, thousands or hundreds of thousands of them, and it was extremely painful for the planet. And particularly in the context of the planet having a presiding deity for whom the planet is the body or one of the bodies. So that's some thoughts on that. Chairs, well, look, Lord Balaram takes different forms in the spiritual world to serve Krishna. You talk here, whoever asked the question, there are things like chairs, tables, and other things. Some say they just matter. Krishna's chair is a form of Balaram. Krishna's house or palace is a form of Balaram. Krishna's umbrella is a form of Balaram. Yes. Krishna's clothes are forms of Balaram. And Krishna's shoes are forms of Balaram. And therefore it's said that there is virtually nothing in Krishna's paraphernalia which is not a form of Balaram. And why? Because Balaram wants to serve Krishna in as many ways as possible. So Balaram, the Vaikuntha planets, Goloka, these are all forms of Balaram. They're all forms of Balaram. It means they're alive. They're not things. There are no things in the spiritual world. Everything is a devotee, is living. But in terms of their rasa, some move, many move, the trees move, the grass moves, the flowers move. There's a description that the rice, Krishna eats rice. Each grain of rice is a devotee there. And the grains of rice, because it's their service to be eaten by Krishna. And they're into their service. They want to do their service. So when Mother Yashoda is cooking for Krishna, the rice, the grains of rice, they fight with each other to get into the pot and then be cooked and then be eaten by Krishna. And that's just the greatest ecstasy for them. And once Krishna has eaten them, they manifest again. And then go through the same thing. And the flowers are out there, in the forest or in the fields. They're out there somewhere, growing. And they see Krishna coming. And they run over, the flowers run over, to be on the path that Krishna's walking on. And as Krishna just comes, like he's almost right there next to where they are, they jump out onto the path. So Krishna steps on them. And that's the perfection. Then Krishna walks on, they get up again, come running around again in the front, and jump onto the road again. These are devotees. And one devotee, I'm sure I told you this, one devotee told me, no, it's actually a Prabhupada pastime, that one devotee approached Prabhupada trying to express humility and said, Srila Prabhupada, I'm so useless. When I go back to Godhead, I'm sure I'll just be a blade of grass. Just nonsense and useless thing. Prabhupada said, you would be so fortunate to be a blade of grass in Goloka Vrindavan is much better than being king of Newcastle or even king of planet Earth. Let's see. How do we know if we're really making progress in the path of devotional service and spiritual life? Yeah. Well, there's a number of things. One thing is that if you see that your material desires are becoming less, and rather your absorption in Krishna consciousness, but maybe particularly chanting, but actually in Krishna consciousness in the broad sense, it is increasing, then those are symptoms of advancement. Another thing is that if the devotees become pleased with your service, and then more pleased, then that means you're making advancement. Yes. So, but in a sort of a sense, it's not, so extremely important to think, am I making advancement? Well, you know that you're going backwards if you see your material desires are coming up more and sort of dominating you more, and your attachment for chanting and serving is less, and then less, and less, means you're going backwards. I mean, yeah, sort of falling down step by step. Yeah. But if the devotees are pleased with your service, if the spiritual master's pleased, if the authorities, the senior devotees are pleased, then this means things are going well and you're progressing. Hari-Ram, you are progressing, aren't you? How does one surrender little, how does, I don't have my glasses, because I don't usually use them. How does one surrender? Is it in en français? It looks like. Whose question is this? How does one surrender practical every way, every day? Was it your question?
It's not mine, but I can see
Yeah, maybe you can decipher
it. What does true surrender look like in practical everyday life?
Oh, really? You got pretty good eyesight. It look like. Okay. It looks like that that more and more you're doing not what you just want to do, but what Krishna wants you to do. And how to know, what Krishna wants you to do. Then you can say what the spiritual master wants you to do. You can say what the devotees want you to do. Hare Krishna. Suswagatam. Hari-Ram. Betiye up. Have a seat. Have a cushion. If you want a chair, we got a few chairs. So that's, what does surrender look like? That is what surrender looks like. That you're now doing. Well, there are 6 principles of surrender. And Vamsi has gone, otherwise I would look them up.
I can look them up for you.
Yeah, okay. Just 8 minutes, beta. Okay. Relax. It's all right. That you do things favorable to Krishna, you don't do things unfavorable. And
yes, so
the 6 principles of surrender, Sanatana Goswami.
oh, so this one's from Jayavadana, but yes, it's the same. Anukulyasya sankalpa, doing only what is favourable, rejecting everything unfavourable.
That's pratikulyasya.
Yeah, then rakshishati,
Rakshishati.
having faith that only Bhagavan is one's protector.
Right.
Gotritve Bhajanam, accepting Bhagavan as one's only maintainer.
Right.
Atma Nikshepa, complete submission of oneself.
Right.
And then Karpanye, feeling meek, humble and insignificant, wretched.
Right. That's Sanatana Goswami actually. That's the verse.
Yes.
It is the verse, yeah. Anukulyasa sankalpa pratikulyasa bharajana rakshishyatiti vishwas. So,
Gotritve
Gotritve
Bhajanam, Atma Nikshepa Karpanye.
So yeah, that's the definition of surrender. given by Srila Sanatana Swami. And, a very important one, which is perhaps a little subtle, is that you accept Krishna's, mission, you could say, as your mission. Yeah. So that's what surrender looks like. And at the end, becoming very humble. Very humble. Yeah. So that's what surrender looks like. Where is Vansi? Could someone, get my tablet out, and I can look up things if the need arises. That's okay. Look, I got it.
Do you need to plug it in or something?
Huh?
Do you need to plug it in?
Let me do it.
Do you need to plug it in?
No. This, Prabhu, is an iPad. You don't have to plug it in. And I don't need my glasses either. But anyway, so that's, Seeing Krishna as your only protector, seeing Krishna as your only maintainer, having no interest other than the interest of the Lord. Yeah, accepting everything favorable, rejecting everything unfavorable. Seeing Krishna as your only maintainer. Seeing Krishna as your only protector.
Complete submission.
Well, that's what, accepting.
Feeling meek and humble. Accepting everything favourable, rejecting everything unfavourable, having faith that Krishna's one's only protector.
And maintainer.
And maintainer.
Those are two separate ones.
Yeah.
And then accepting the Lord's interest. In other words, what the Lord wants as what you want.
Yeah.
Like Lord Chaitanya wants us to spread Krishna consciousness, so he's like, right, what do I want? I want everyone to accept Krishna consciousness. I want to help everyone accept Krishna consciousness. And then to be very meek and humble. Okay, devotees, here we go. What are your thoughts on astrology in Krishna consciousness? Should we rely only on Krishna and devotional guidance, or is it appropriate to consult our birth chart and seek guidance from a devotee astrologer who also practices Krishna consciousness? Well, Indradyumna Maharaj had the experience, you probably heard. There was one astrologer, kind of famous in certain circles, astrologer near, not Uday, but in Nathdwar in Rajasthan. And Indradyumna Maharaj wanted to go and have his chant done. So he went, and he rolled up there. He didn't make an appointment. He just walked in. And the man said, you are 5 minutes late. In other words, it appeared that the man knew he was coming, because he sort of tuned in to the cosmic connections. But it could also mean that he's very clever, and whoever walks in says, without an appointment. Just, you're 5 minutes late. What did I do? Because I tell you, some of these people are so clever. They're just so clever in their little fields. Yeah. So anyway, well, look, it is a fact. It is a fact. Srila Prabhupada sometimes got astrological readings done. Sometimes. Not like he was really into it and, like checking everything every day or even every week or month. But I know at least at the end, or just at the end, near the end, Prabhupada had a chart done, and then, which didn't just say what was going to happen, but gave advice. Do this and don't do that, which Prabhupada followed for a day or so, and then just didn't bother following after that. So I would say, that it's not really so important for devotees. And I can say, I've never had my chant done, and I don't feel any the worse for it. Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm just, what they say, where ignorance is bliss, it's foolish to be wise, it's folly to be wise. So generally I have a pretty happy existence, but maybe that's because ignorance is bliss. Just sort of floating along from day to day without being systematic. But the problem with getting into astrology is that one becomes dependent on it. And, there are astrologers and astrologers, if you know what I mean. And the number of astrologers who are bona fide is much less than those who are not bona fide. And, someone does a reading for you. Yes, you were brought up in this way and your parents were like that, and they're bound to get something right just by the law of averages, and then think, wow, he has insight into my life. Just like if I have had a pulse reading for my health, and you're sitting there sniffling, coughing occasionally, and the fellow's doing a pulsing. You seem to have a cold. Do you have a cold? Because some of these people, they're very clever. They can just pick up how your health is, and then they say, and you think, wow, how did he understand that? So, the problem with getting too much into it is you become dependent on it, and then you will do certain things only because the astrologer said, and you won't do things which the astrologer said not to do. But now these things may be Krishna conscious things, but you're making decisions on usually a sort of doubtful type of do. Sometimes we have our conversations. The other day, I was imitating what he said, and he stopped and looked at me. How did you understand that? Yes, so generally, it's better to follow the directions of Srila Prabhupada, of the spiritual master, the senior devotees who know you. But the principle of astrology is this. Now, I am from a sort of, surfing background, but a maritime background. Boats, and the tides, and the winds, which directions the winds are coming. And depending on the phase of the moon, the tides change, meaning how far up the beach the water comes when it's high tide, and how far down the beach the water goes when it's low tide. Now, I don't know if you're even aware of high tides and low tides, but when there's a full moon, the high tide is noticeably, considerably higher. More water is dragged in by the moon than when it's particularly when there's no moon. Yeah, then the high tide is really noticeably lower. Do you get the idea? Were you aware of tides before? You were. You're not from a surfing background, are you? And it's something, if you're working with the sea, which includes the surfers, they really work with the sea, then, the phases of the moon are very important to watch because it affects the tides. So what is happening is the moon is pulling water in more when it's a full moon, and when there's no moon, the moon is pulling less water, and it's really a lot of water. Means thousands, I don't know how many tons of water is being pulled by the moon. Actually, it's a fact. So, and our bodies are what percentage water?
71.
71.
That's what Shavin said.
Okay, when I was brought up, it was, in New Zealand, it was, I think, 75%. Maybe it's different in Newcastle.
Maybe the moon is stronger in New Zealand.
So the moon, so our bodies are, it doesn't make that much.
AI says 60%.
We all know AI is nonsense. But whether it's 60 or 70 or, whatever it is, the body is more water than anything else. So, and the moon affects water. Yeah. So therefore the moon affects our bodies because it affects the water in our bodies. And a lot of the time it affects the water in relation with the brain. Therefore, traditionally, someone who has a psychological problem is what's called a lunatic. Yeah, luna meaning moon, because it was known. Because they would go, as the moon became fuller, their condition would become stronger and more sort of vivid. Yeah, because the water in their body is being moved in certain ways. So that's the principle. That's just the moon. But you know, other planets affect other elements within our bodies. Yeah. And that's how astrology works. That, you know, if you, like Saturn, if it's, you're in a Saturn period, normal Saturn is one of the demigods of war, I think. Am I right? Or Mars. How do you yeah. So people, when they come under Saturn, they have Saturn periods and all that. Then it's, you know, there's like a disturbed atmosphere in their lives. You know, I mean, I've never studied it. I know devotees, my very good friend Prahlad Nanda Maharaj, Banu Maharaj, they're great devotees. And I know them both very well, particularly Prahlad Nanda Maharaj, I know extremely well. He's really into astrology, as is Banu Maharaj. Yeah. And it's, yeah, the science and the sort of, the explanation is, it's not necessarily like the moon as a big lump of rock is influencing water so much, but the person there is controlling water a lot. The deity of the moon, Chandra. Yeah. Hare Krishna. That's the background of the science, actually. And yeah, I mean, if you've ever been involved with the sea, like boating and all that sort of thing on a very regular basis, then I tell you what, you really see how the moon is working. It's working extremely strongly. It's moving, I don't know, thousands, millions of tons of water is being moved around in a few hours. Yeah. So, and our bodies are, don't ask another AI, Chat GPT. I prefer Claude actually, but ask Chat GPT. See what it says is the percentage. So therefore, our bodies are affected by the different planets, or most specifically, the people, the deities on the particular planets. But you know, astrology is there, then palmistry. Can you read a palm? Can't read a palm?
I know a few lines.
Yeah, a few lines. My lifeline is my lifeline going down there. It's pretty long. It splits at a certain point. My head, I mean, if you know anything about palmistry, do any of you know anything about palmistry? If you did, you'd see this very interesting line across my palm. Yes, my head line and my heart line are amalgamated. That's this, see, going across. It's head and heart. Yeah, head and heart are mixed. Means the head and the heart are working together. And this, you know, this is Venus. This is Venus. And where is it? Here. This is, your marriage area. How many lines may determine how many times you'll be married. Haribol. And we say to devotees, when at weddings, sometimes when a young man, young woman, devotee are getting married, and in many cases the ceremony gets a bit mixed up, and some mistakes are made. And we say, don't worry, it's easier the second time. It's just a joke, right? Krishna is so absorbed in his Vrindavan Leelas that he even forgot he had to go and kill Kamsa. And Narada Muni had to remind him about this, yes. Is it Radharani who reminds him to check on us? Or we can only get to Krishna? Or so we can only get to Krishna through her mercy. Radharani. I'm sure Radharani reminds Krishna, because they're really a team, Radha and Krishna. But I wouldn't worry too much. Krishna is a pretty cool person. He's on top of things. And he doesn't, of course, in the pastimes, he allows Radharani to do so many things. It doesn't mean he loses control. And interesting point. Someone, I forget who it was, I think when we were in Leicester, just recently. Oh, it was, it was Madhavananda Prabhu, when we were in Lithuania at a festival. He made an interesting point. Devotees go to Radhakund and stay there because they want to get the mercy of Radharani, because it's her place. But actually the devotees know, if you really want the mercy of Radharani, what should you do? You should chant Hare Krishna. Because if you chant Hare Krishna, then that means Krishna's with you, that means Radharani will be with you. Yes. Because wherever Krishna is, Radharani will be there. Yeah. So if we're chanting Hare Krishna, wherever it is, geographically speaking, Radharani will be there. Because she's always there where Krishna is. So therefore, and I must say, Prabhupada he definitely didn't appreciate the idea of devotees going and living at Radhakund. Yeah. Because, what are you doing there? We should be where we have service to do. Yeah. And where we have service to do, Krishna will be there because he's accepting our service. He's overseeing us. And wherever Krishna is, Radharani will be there. You don't need to kind of, try to manipulate Radharani to be where I am. Yeah, so is it Radharani who reminds Krishna to check on us? Well, she may do from time to time. Thank you, Madam Mataji. Recently was Sananga Swami's disappearance day. How did Sananga Swami disappear from this world? Mm-hmm. Yes, that was on the Guru Purnima day. And as far as I'm aware, he externally died from old age. I don't think he had cancer or, some sort of something like that. But he was so dear to the bridge buses that, because he would go on parikrama, that was his program. He would just go on parikrama basically every day, until he got too old to walk, like distances. And then Krishna gave him a particular shila and said, you walk around this 7 times, it'll be the equivalent of doing a Govardhan parikrama. But I mentioned, what did I say? Oh yeah, I mentioned about the Ayurvedic doctors. They study, they're taking the power reading. But don't worry, they are watching you as they're taking your pulse. They're watching you to see the symptoms. And then they say, you seem to have a cold as you sniffle away. And then you think, how did you find out? So, I can tell you, this is just, indicative of what's going on. It's amazing. You go to the Radha Damodar temple, right? You've all been to the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan. And on the altar they have this, quite sizable Govardhan Shila with a footprint of Krishna and of a calf and a stick, something. You go to the Radha Damodar temple and they say, yeah, this is the one. Sanatana Goswami Krishna gave to Sanatana Goswami. There it is. Give a donation. Then you go to the Radha Damodar temple in Jaipur. It's the same group of people. It's just, And what do they have on the altar? Take a guess. It's a kind of sizable Govardhan Shila with Krishna's footprint and the footprint of a calf and of a flute and a stick and whatever else. And, they tell you, yes, this is the one Krishna gave Sanatana Goswami. I didn't hear that Krishna gave Sanatana Goswami 2. And if you get the chance, go on Govardhan Parikrama and go to Ratnakund. You know Ratnakund?
Yeah.
You know Ratnakund?
So,
Yeah, anyway, you have to turn off the main Parikrama path, go in, 100 meters or 70 meters or something, and then there's a path, it's like a road even, just a clay road going to the right, and then you arrive at Ratnakund. It's about 150 meters down. And just there, by the entranceway into Ratnakund, now there's a shrine. Back in the old days, it was just this Govardhan Shila just lying there in the open. Now there's a little shrine thing over the top. And what do you see? It's a Govardhan Shila. And look, there's Krishna's footprint. And there's the hoofprint of a cow. And there's maybe it's a flute or a stick or something. And how does it work? My theory is that these people, they prepare, they get hold of shilas and they carve them and, so that they appear to have certain particular markings. I can't think of a sort of more likely explanation. Because, one Govardhan Shila Sanam Goswami is one thing, but 2? Come on. How about 3? No. I don't. But they're looking, there's a famous saying, a fool and his money are easily separated. And that's the name of the game. They're looking for innocent people. And they can just show them, look, this is this. Really? Give it an Israel, yes, of course. And that's how they live. Okay, this is Kali Yuga. Sometimes people ask, how can a woman have 5 husbands? Referring to Draupadi. What do we tell them? Well, look, I mentioned, day before yesterday, or was it yesterday?
It was yesterday.
It was, yeah, Zuma.
Oh no, it was the day.
No, it was last night.
It was last night.
Last night we did a program in Stockton, and I mentioned how in South Africa polygamy is legal, completely legal. And the former president of the whole country, the state president, Mr. Zuma, has, at the last count, 6 wives. And hurry on. And it's just normal. And in Swaziland, the king, it's one of the few countries in the world where there is a king who is actually ruling the country. Although, it's a tiny little country. As I heard, you could look it up, he's gone. Look it up on Google Maharaj Caitanya. I think at the last count he had like 32 wives. Or maybe it's only 22. But it's multiple numbers of wives. So what's wrong with Draupadi having 5 husbands? What's wrong? She was a strong lady. And these men with multiple husbands, they're meant to be really strong men, so, they can look after the multiple wives and maintain relationships so, there's no favoritism and all that. So why couldn't a strong woman do that? Of course a strong woman could do that. But generally, it's men with multiple wives, rather than a woman with multiple husbands. We had the foreman at our temple when I first arrived in South Africa. He had 2 wives. He was Zulu, and it's not unusual at all. Not unusual. 2 wives. Only 2. Yeah. And I told everyone last night at the program, those of you who were there would remember, that we have one of our friends, Indian man named George, who's a wealthy man. He has 2 wives, and they all live together, and they sort of coexist. So he has 2 wives, and, are you ready? 32 children. Haribol. And we went there and did a program. He had bought a property. We went there, he invited us, we went to did a program, good number, 10 years ago maybe. And there were 300 people there who were only direct relatives. No friends. Just, his own children, their children, and then uncles and aunts, and their children, There was 300 altogether. And I asked him, can you remember the names of all your children? And he said no. His actual biological children, he couldn't remember all their names. That's a problem with having multiple husbands or wives and multiple children. Is it more important to do what is wanted of us or find a service that we like to do? Well, it's more important to really be absorbed in devotional service and more and more absorbed in devotional service so that you realize that whatever service you do, it's just nectar. They're just all nectar. So then you'll be happy doing any service because, it is a fact they're all nectar, but the experience you'll get from the service will not depend on your sort of, your whims and fancies. Yeah, you'll just be, it's just service. And you just absorb yourself in it, and it's just, whether you're sweeping the floor or running a country in Krishna consciousness, it's just all nectar because it's service. So we want to come to that point. Until we come to that point, particularly for those who are like managing yatras, one has to see that the devotees are engaged. Of course, if it's an emergency, then hopefully the devotees will be willing to do what is required, if it's just a real emergency. But otherwise, if it's sort of normal circumstances, the authorities have to be conscious, at least to some degree, of what a devotee can do, what a devotee can't do, or has more difficulty doing, put it that way. Yeah. And try to keep the devotees engaged in such ways that within reason, the devotees can be as happy as possible. Yeah, because, particularly with neophytes, if you try and force them to do something and it's just, it's just not their cup of herbal tea at all, then they'll develop some sort of stress, anxiety condition. Yeah. So particularly when devotees are newer, we have to be conscious of that, and at least to some degree. But hopefully as time goes on, the devotees will become more able to do more different things. Yeah. I could just tell you my own personal experience. When I first moved into the temple, one of the main things I was asked to do was distribute books. But I was not sort of a very outgoing type of person. I was kind of, a quieter person. So it was difficult. But then I got into it. And I became, a relatively successful book distributor. Yeah, 1 week I distributed the most medium-sized books of any devotee in the whole movement in the world. Don't worry, it was a long time ago. 50 years ago. Something like that. Yeah. Anyway, like that. Here's a funny thing. When I first joined the temple in London, there was this idea which was quite popular amongst quite a number of devotees living in the temple. And we had between 50 and 60 devotees living in this temple, which was sort of about the same size as this temple. I mean, structured differently, but wasn't a big difference in size in terms of square meters. So there was this theory. If you like doing a particular service, you should be very careful to not do it. Because it'll be Maya. You'll enjoy it. And you don't want to enjoy things. This idea was quite popular. If they asked you to do a service like something you were good at, you should try and refuse. And only do a service which was like a real battle for you to do. What do you think? Anyway, it was artificial. Oh, I see. What should we do if someone calls us names and uses bad language towards us? Yes. Well, generally speaking, I would say you should understand this person has a problem. And although this person is sort of a devotee, to whatever degree, to some degree, but this devotee needs help because, they're calling me names or insulting me. But I'm trying to be a devotee. I'm not claiming to be a great devotee because I'm not, but I'm trying. So, what's the point of insulting me and all that? So you should understand this person needs help. So then then the authorities should be informed to try and help that devotee to get out of that habit, if it's a habit. One thing you can do is, if the devotee says that, you're a terrible devotee, and whatever, then you can tell them, listen, I am much worse than you think. You think I'm bad in this way and that. I am much worse. In fact, I am so much worse that by you trying to insult me in this way, you're practically glorifying me. And if you say that with conviction, then it's unlikely, I would think, well, at least my experiences, it tends to defuse people who are into that because they see that they're trying to cause you pain, but they see that it's not causing you pain at all. And so they'll stop because, it's just not achieving their goal of causing you pain. But best to really get help for them because they, I would say, practically desperately need help. So devotees, we're almost there, devotees. We have, anyway, a few more. What is more important in devotional service, quality or quantity? Well, both are, but quality without quantity is better than quantity without quality. But quality without quantity is not very good, actually. It means you're lazy. Some people, because, there's a statement in Shastra that if you chant the name Krishna once, purely, then you've perfected your life. So then what do you do every day? 16 rounds? No. One name. Hare Krishna!
Hare Krishna!
And try and do it perfectly. Just once. Yeah, so it comes up, in regard to 16 rounds, because many devotees, in my experience, particularly if they're on the kind of the newer side, they find 16 rounds is quite a bit to do. And, they may be able to focus for some number of rounds, but they reach a certain point in the 16, and then it becomes difficult to keep focused. So these devotees, sometimes they suggest, should I just do less rounds, but make a point of doing them really nicely? Yeah. Prabhupada, in fact, was asked that sort of question, and Prabhupada just simply said, just carry on and do your best, and after some time you'll be able to do 16 rounds. Get the quantity right, but also get the quality right. So the answer is, particularly in regard to rounds, it's a crisis. Go on, if you could say something to Srila Prabhupada personally, what would it be? Well, Srila Prabhupada said he only asked his spiritual master one question. And it's interesting, you may not know, or some of you may not know, Prabhupada had very little personal association with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. It wasn't like, so many devotees now, they get association with their spiritual master regularly, or, at least back in Prabhupada's time, there were the devotees like Shrutakirti Prabhu. They were living with Prabhupada 24/7, and just with Prabhupada all day, every day. But Prabhupada had very little personal association with his spiritual master. And Prabhupada said, I only ever asked my spiritual master one question. That was, how can I serve you? So I would say that an appropriate answer to this would be, if we could say something to Srila Prabhupada personally, what would it be? I would say, you could say thank you, but I think it would be best actually to say, how can I serve you? That would be the most appropriate thing to say. Because thank you is kind of like a conclusion in many ways. Someone does something for you, thank you, and then it's finished. But how can I serve you? Means you're sort of getting set up for a lifetime of service. What is the most striking realization you had with Srila Prabhupada? The most striking realization that I had. But the most striking realization, I would say, was that Srila Prabhupada was the most tuned in person to what's going on and how to respond, react, deal with what's going on. Yeah. And the most Krishna conscious person, could relate anything to Krishna, anything and everything. Open. Is there a way you, means you, can talk to Krishna? just do it. Probably better not to start, walk up to the deities and say, hello, Panchatattva, something, and whatever. Do it internally. Yeah, you can pray to Panchatattva and, talk to them within your mind. I'd say that's a nice thing to do. And I think we must do that. We must relate with Krishna. Because he's a person. And we're trying to focus our lives on this person. So personal relationship involves communicating. How can I develop / what would help me develop admiration for all the hard work of the devotees around me? Well, I think the best thing for you to do would be to pray to Krishna to help you to do that. Yeah. Because we are, unless someone does something really outstanding, if someone is just doing something kind of normal, then to get really excited about it, like, wow, you're just doing fantastic, it wouldn't really be so common. But, when devotees are doing sort of regular services or even services you're not aware of, then it's nice to appreciate them. But it may be maybe it depends on you, it may be a little more difficult to do like that, like spontaneously. But if you pray to Krishna, please help me to appreciate the devotees. Include that in your daily prayers. Then Krishna will help you to appreciate the devotees more. Sure, this is a long one. Brace yourselves. All the devotees come to ISKCON to offer something to Krishna. Everyone has something to offer. Over the time, there might be some challenges. How do we keep everyone happy? So every soul has the opportunity to stay in Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON and offer the service they can according to their capacity to Krishna, which will be very pleasing to Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. Yeah. How do we? Well, it's a fact, everyone is facing challenges. And it's said sometimes about some devotees, if this devotee is not in anxiety, if the devotee has nothing to be anxious about, he gets anxious about that. Yes. But we should encourage the devotees, not artificially, but we should really encourage the devotees. When you see a devotee doing some nice service, then don't just take it for granted. Thank them. Thank them. And, that expression of appreciation will enter their heart. And among other things, it will help your relationship with that devotee, which can be very important, or usually is very important. But it will also inspire the devotee to continue doing nicely and to do things even more nicely. When difficulties come in a devotee's life, should they consult astrology or tolerate it, thinking it as Krishna's mercy? Really speaking, when devotees get into difficulty, they should. The problem with astrology now, we did talk about it just half an hour ago or so. But the problem now is, how are you, we, anyone, going to find an astrologer who knows what they're talking about? And the answer to that is, it may not be possible. At least someone, sometimes someone will get it right. Even if many times they get it wrong. Sometimes they may get something right. But you don't want to take advice from someone like that about your life. So really the thing to do, if you're facing difficulty, is to take shelter of devotees. And the famous verse in Nectar of Instruction, Dadati Pratigrinati, Gulyamakyati Prichati, Bhakti Caitanya Swami Shadvidam Priti Lakshanam. So, but the line in question is that Dadati Pratigrinati, Gulyamakyati Prichati. It is a standard devotional practice to reveal your mind to another devotee. And then it is a standard devotional practice that when someone does reveal your mind to you, you try to respond appropriately. If you feel you're not really capable of doing that, you should advise them to approach someone else or suggest someone else they could approach. Because you don't want, to give some not good advice. Because someone's in anxiety, they're having difficulty, means they don't know what to do. If they knew what to do, they probably wouldn't come and approach you. So they're actually looking for shelter, you could say. And if you give some bad shelter, that's worse than not giving any shelter at all. So we have to be very mindful to not try to give advice to devotees on sensitive matters, personal matters, unless we feel confident or even experienced in the type of whatever is the matter in question, that we could at least give some input, which would be helpful. I'll give you a classic example. In Bhakti Caitanya Swami, we had this Bhakti program. It was a huge program. There was always about 20 new boys and some new girls. And the devotees managing the program would try and keep them kind of separate from each other, because, the boys separate from other boys, because the danger was, if one of the new boys asks for some advice from another new boy, it's not very likely they'll get good advice. So what happened once was, these two new boys, they were sort of hanging out together a bit. And one day one of them said, I'm not even happy here, I want to leave, and explained to the other why I wanted to leave. And the other one said, yeah, I feel the same. And they both left together. Because he took advice, from someone who's just not qualified to give advice. Yeah. So, definitely better than approaching an astrologer like, I don't know if there's on the internet some astrology service, I'm sure there must be many, or in the newspapers. Yeah. Siya, Hare Krishna. Jai Siya Ram. Yes. So gentlemen, particularly turning to like commercial people, is if you have some difficulty, approach devotees. Lately I've been letting my mind remind me about, is it about, yes, about people who have deeply hurt me. How can I find peace and move on? I'm worried about all the Vaishnava parade committed and loss of taste I'm internally going through. Yes, well, that's very important. You know, I could possibly look it up. But there is a seminar on forgiveness. Yeah. And to cultivate forgiveness is extremely important. Yeah. Who was it I mentioned the other day? A related thing is that, you know, sort of hating a person, means that, there was something Nelson Mandela said, I think, that, you know, it's like, anyway, the idea is if you hate someone, then it's, and you want them to die, it's like wanting to die yourself. Something like that. Yeah. I won't take a few minutes to look it up, but it was to that effect. So forgiving is very important, particularly amongst devotees, because devotees are devotees, even though sometimes they have their moments. And occasionally some devotees, they rarely have their moments. And they may just really hurt someone else. But if you can forgive them, it will be extremely good for you. To maintain a bad attitude towards another devotee is, you know, when you're asking for trouble, shall we say. I'm going to look it up actually. Just bear with me. Just don't go away, okay? Hang in there. I will get there in due course. Courses. Humility workshop. Maybe I'll have to look it up and mention it tomorrow. It's possible, actually. Well, here's an interesting one anyway. One who feels humble and meek has the door for the kingdom of God opened for him or her. That's a letter from Prabhupada, December the 9th, 1968, if you want to look it up. Anyway, I'll try and find it tomorrow. Okay, so devotees, yes, or what? Mercy, this is just something. Mercy and forgiveness are core tenets, means like essential teachings of all religious faiths. When we forgive, we release desires to harm the other person. We realize that we all share in our human failings. We liberate ourselves from the emotional and spiritual hell we were trapped in by our pain, anger, and rage. Without forgiveness, we die spiritually. How's that? Is that a good one?
Was the expression you're looking for was holding on to anger like drinking poison, expecting the other person to
Okay,
die?
that's a good one, yeah. Just, what is it again?
Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Did you catch that? Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and hoping the other person will die. It's really true. And is there another one there?
No.
Oh. Yeah, that was pretty good, though, wasn't it? When we forgive, we release desires to harm the other person, release them so they go away. We realize that we all share in our human failings. That's a fact. We liberate ourselves from the emotional and spiritual hell we were trapped in by our pain, anger, and rage. Without forgiveness, we die spiritually. How can, and this is the last question, would you believe it? 7:30 we're going to have kirtan, by the way. Means in 10 minutes. How can I develop more taste for the holy names? Yes, right. Well, here's one suggestion, is that serve the associate with devotees. Let's start off there. Associate with devotees who have a taste for chanting the holy names. Because you'll become who you associate with. Yeah, you'll become like those people you associate with. Then, then serving the devotees. You know, there's that verse 1, Srimad Bhagavatam 1-16, by serving the devotees, basically by serving the devotees. One develops an affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Basically means hearing and chanting about Krishna. Krishna gives you a taste for these things. If for hearing and chanting, if we serve the devotees, because Krishna really appreciates it. Krishna really appreciates it when we serve his devotees. Let's see. Anyway, okay. try humility workshop here? Did we do that? Humility? I don't think I did forgiveness as a real workshop. We did devotee relationships.
Oh, yeah, you did.
That's what we did. Here, listen. It is said that forgiveness is a quality of those who are advancing in spiritual knowledge. The greater the offense you must forgive, the greater the mercy you will get. It takes great spiritual strength to forgive an individual or organization that has deeply hurt you. You are actually fortunate if someone offends or hurts you, because it gives you the opportunity to make great spiritual advancement. I was attached to my resentment. It was my weapon against those who hurt me. My resentment. Just that I resented. Yeah. Sometimes we don't want to forgive because we want to punish the other person for what they've done. But the reality is that we're only punishing ourselves. And then the one that Vansika Prabhu mentioned, it is said that envy, it says here envy, it is said that envy is like drinking poison, or anger, or resentment. It's like drinking poison and hoping the other person will die. Until you totally forgive, you will be in chains. Totally release them, and you will be released. Nelson Mandela said, if you hate, you are giving your enemy your heart and mind. Nelson Mandela was really quite a character, actually. Yeah. These are some exercises we do in our devotee relationships seminar. What should I do if I realize that I've offended a devotee? What should I do if I realize that I've offended a devotee, but I don't have the courage or potency or the necessary strength to approach the devotee for forgiveness? What should I do if I begged for forgiveness, but the offended devotee superficially forgave me? What should I do if I begged for forgiveness, but the offended devotee did not forgive me? What should I do if a devotee approaches me to beg for forgiveness? The devotee approaches me to beg for forgiveness, but I've been so deeply hurt that I cannot forgive the offender. What should I do? And these are interesting questions. These are parts of our seminar. Here, from Srila Prabhupada, benefits of forgiving and being forgiven. From Srimad Bhagavatam 1:9-27, purport. To get freedom from anger, one should learn how to forgive. Then Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, chapter 20, verse 3, purport. It is said that forgiveness is a quality of those who are advancing in spiritual knowledge. And hence, when we do this seminar, we tell everyone, within 72 hours, we want you to approach 3 devotees that you have most gravely offended and beg for forgiveness. That might mean phoning someone or, electronically doing something like that. Then, I will approach the devotees that have offended or hurt me the most and say, I felt you deeply offended and hurt me. Please forgive me for feeling this way. What do you think, devotees? Are we getting into sensitive areas here? Computer decided my iPad has gone on strike. Let's see if we've got 2 minutes. Let's see if I can come up with anything new, interesting. Anyway, I think there's food for thought here. Please take some of these things home with you and really try to see what you can do to improve yourselves. Right. I think that's about it. Seriously. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai. His Holiness Bhakti Caitanya Swami ki Jai. So thank you all for your questions, and thank you Maharaj for answering everyone's questions. Did you get through the whole list?
Yes.
Wonderful. So again, we please do encourage you, each of these sessions throughout the whole week has been recorded. Vasu Shresh Prabhu has done a wonderful job of uploading them. They're already on YouTube. So, it's nice to be here, but I find that if you listen to them again, and I've been doing that this week, you pick up on things that you perhaps didn't hear, or you can hear it in more clarity. So please listen again to all of these sessions. We're going to have some kirtan just now, but before we have kirtan, I thought I would just share some good news. So, today, on our Sacred Street Party, we went out from 2 p.m. till 4 p.m. We distribute, well, there were 17 of us, including Maharaj, and we managed to, we did 2 hours of Harinam Sankirtan. We managed to distribute 97 prasadam sweets. We distributed 25 of Srila Prabhupada's books, including 2 Science of Self-Realizations, 2 Bhagavad Gitas, 7 Perfection of Yogas, 8 Chant and Be Happy, 4 Ishopanishad, and 2 Nectar of Instruction. And we collected £67.15 Lakshmi points to be used in the service of Panchatattva. We will publish the photos and the videos later on, and we will send out some highlights from the Sacred Street Party. Maybe just quickly we could ask just for a couple of reflections, because it's always nice to hear people's reflections when we go out and we do something for Krishna. So does anyone have any reflections from the Sacred Street Party? Oh, sorry. Well, we'll do that in a minute, but let's do some reflections from the Sacred Street Party.
We need a bigger speaker.
We need a bigger speaker, yes. Yeah, so just in relation to that, when we set up, Vasu Shrestha and myself were there, we were there for about 15 minutes, and then another, should we say, religious group set up right next to us. And we went over to them, and I very politely and very respectfully said, you know, we're just about to start here. I think if we're right next to each other, we're going to be kind of, you know, drowning each other out. And he said, I don't hear you singing. And I said, no, we've just set up, we're about to start, you know, you can see we were here, you know, and he said, I don't hear you singing. So he was being very obstinate and obnoxious. And so we grabbed a drum and we sang as loud as we could. But yes, they did have a loud sound system. But just an interesting note, right at the end of the day I was speaking to some born-again Christians, and they said, who was here first? Was it you or them? And I said, we were, and we asked very respectfully. She said, it's a shame. Actually, I'm a Christian, but I don't support what that man's done. There's enough room here for everyone. And she said, the thing is, you all look so happy and so jolly, and you're trying to spread love, you know? There was no need for him to do that. So anyway, yes, but if we had a louder speaker, we would have drowned him out. So nice reflection.
Hare Krishna. I think we are honoring our every Saturday with Chaitanya Prabhu, Dhananjay Prabhu, Mother Saraswati. But today was so special because we are singing right next to Maharaj, and that was so special. And personally, I felt the whole time Maharaj was singing, it was like floating, and I literally lost sense of where I was, the time or place. It's just melted, and I just felt like it's just going on and on and on. It was such a wonderful experience, and I feel very fortunate to be with all the devotees on the street for Srila Prabhupada, and especially next to Srila Guru Maharaj. Thank you. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thanks, Satya, Vrinda, and then Jagannath. If anyone else has a reflection, it's always nice to hear.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, thank you, Maharaj, for coming with us. It is, like Satya said, it's a very special day today. Well, I noticed that the Christian tribe, is it? It was tribe Christian or whatever.
Yeah.
That man was quite really like into us. He was saying that believe in Jesus. He is God. It's not a religion. If you want a religion, look at my right side. These guys are religion. We are not religion. Don't follow them. So I was listening and I was telling to Brother David, we are not doing anything, but look how he's trying to, you know. But at the same moment when he was saying that, a group of girls approach us and they look at them first and then they come directly to us and start dancing with us, and so many people were coming to us rather than going to them. So that was quite like, you know, like Krishna is really the supreme, like even people who are non-devotees, actually they are coming and dancing with us, looking at books, and you know, when we approach them, they are taking sweet. I approach a lady and he said, oh, you are the jolly guys, I love you. So he said, I think everybody knows you by that name, you know, the jolly guys. That means like the happy people. So she was happy and she took a book with name in a donation. So yeah, that's my reflection. Thank you.
That just reminds me, one time Radhanath Swami was doing kirtan at a university campus in America, and he had a group of a few people around him appreciating his kirtan. But then there was another religious preacher a little further away, and he was telling everyone, you're going to hell, and you're going to hell. And he had a big group around him, and that Hare Krishna, he's going to hell. And so he marched over to Radhanath Swami with all of these people behind him, and he confronted Maharaj. And he said, you're going to hell, you're from the devil. And Radhanath Swami said very humbly, he said, if
if there are people like you in heaven, I would rather go to hell. and everyone did that, they applauded him. So anyway, just reminded me when you said he was criticising us. Yeah. Jagannatheshwari. Oh, and then the children.
It was really nice to see everyone engaged in this street party. Even the children were giving sweets. They were doing the best that they could do. And they were dancing, and Gaurang was playing kartal, and people were stopping just to look, sometimes people got grumpy face and they see a baby dancing. Then we just smiled. And those Christians were very envious and could feel, that they were putting, every time I was turning around, they were putting the volume. They had free to however many speakers. They kept on putting the volume up. And then people were going away from them. People were naturally kind of, we were like little magnets. People were rather coming towards the devotees. Then they were smiling, and they were, books were just, we didn't do so many books today, but it wasn't difficult to give a book to people today. It was just people were, and then they were giving contributions. So it was really nice, and Guru Dev was probably your effulgence as well. And for me, that people were probably drawn to you. But when I was like, at some point we were playing kartals because Christians were playing so loudly. We decided to go and play kartals so that the kirtan could be, not drown in what they were trying to do. So we literally went there, and I could hear them saying the devil, on the microphone, and I was thinking, what are you preaching, Here we are, the devotees are singing, everyone was happy with a big smile, and then they were like, you guys are the devil. And despite of trying to undermine the devotees, people were getting more disturbed by them, and they were coming more towards the devotees, so that was nice to see, how powerful the Mahamantra was.
Just in the same vein, I noticed that they did not have many people approaching them and, sort of talking to them. There were two people, there were seats just sort of opposite where they were. There were two people sitting there for quite some time, but otherwise, the number of people sort of coming around by us and being stopped by us, and sometimes approaching us, was a lot more than people who were just coming along and then getting involved with them, that I noticed.
Yeah, I think love conquers hate. Right? Rajendra, you had a reflection?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say something along the same lines. What you just said.
It just reminded me that Bhakti Thakur mentions that when we see another religion, we should look at it in a way and say, oh, these people know God in this way, and we should show appreciation. And anyone who's basically criticizing other religions, they're not doing a good job in society. I can't find the word now, but they're a hassle in society. And it's a shame that these guys had this attitude. And I was thinking, we're both, preaching about God, we should be friends. But they are more like inimical in one way. Like that, And another thing, like Chaitanya said, so there's love of God, and then there's fear of God. So Srila Prabhupada taught us to love God. He said, we need to develop our loving relationship with God. So that's another difference why people are drawn to us, maybe.
I was just thinking also how important it is for us to be an ambassador of goodwill, as Vaisheshika Prabhu says, because we're going out there as representatives of Srila Prabhupada, we're going out there as representatives of ISKCON, and we're going out there as representatives of Krishna. So if we leave someone with a bad impression, then we've basically defamed Srila Prabhupada, we've defamed Krishna, we've defamed ISKCON. Even though there's thousands, maybe millions of members of ISKCON, I don't know how many, but Prabhupada said if you take 1 grain of rice from a pot, you can tell the whole grain of rice. So in the same way, they meet one Hare Krishna, they have a bad exchange, they think the whole of the Hare Krishnas are not good. So Prabhupada taught us he said a devotee should be a perfect gentleman or a perfect lady. And when I met this man today, actually, he just gave me a really bad impression. I've met many Christians over all my years of, distributing books, and I meet some who are just so nice. But actually, he gave me a bad impression of that group. If he'd have just said, oh yeah, no problem, we'll move a bit further up. If he'd come to me and they were there first, I'd say, yeah, no problem, because I would want to try and give a good impression. But anyway, so I just thought how important it is for us to give a good impression. We can just say the wrong thing and we totally discredit Krishna and Srila Prabhupada. So it's quite an important responsibility that lays upon our shoulders, actually. Yeah. Anyone else have any other reflections? Yeah, let's not force people, but do you want to say something, Nancy? You've just been volunteered.
Well, I always find this in Newcastle when I come. The devotees are so lively and always so happy. And it's just that family atmosphere I've been on Sacred Street Party a couple of times when Guru has been here. And that family atmosphere that's here within the walls of the temple, it just spills out. And it's just so nice to see all the devotees interacting with members of the public just like that. So it's just very unique what I see here, and it's very special. And I really like watching Chaitanya Vallabha Prabhu leading everybody. He's such a natural leader, and just so charismatic and so sweet, and it's just so nice to see all devotees serving Prabhupada in these directions. So that's my observation.
I'll give you that £100 later.
I could do that.
Thank you, Nancy, for those encouraging words. But yeah, it's a fact. If we create a nice atmosphere, people are automatically attracted to come into that atmosphere. Okay, any other reflections? If not, I think we'd like to ask Maharaj, would you like to lead the kirtan before we have Prashadam?
Okay, sure. Well, I think I have
Oh.
to read something.
Oh.
He's going to have darshan with you in that.
Oh, okay. All right, no problem. So maybe someone else can sing a kirtan. Sorry? Vasu was on the list. Okay.